What if I told you that I once believed that being Chinese was the worst thing that could possibly happen to me? That one Disney movie made me shun my entire heritage, reject my culture, and leave all my friends to try and become a white guy. But before I share what that Disney movie was and what happened, a little bit of important backstory. So picture this, little old me, born and raised in Canada, 1995, and I grew up in a very Asian community. But despite that, I always felt kind of inferior. I remember at 8 years old going to school with my noodles in a little thermos, and I'd be self-conscious of my food smelling weird, that it looked like worms, to be honest, and that it was strange. The idea of race didn't exist to me yet. It was just, I got some weird ass smelling food versus what I saw on TV. Which, by the way, I had restaurant level Chinese food every single day because my family owned a restaurant. And somehow TV had convinced me that Lunchables and a peanut butter sandwich were the ultimate cool kid food. I begged my mom for them, thinking it was normal. It was what was cool. And I'm just imagining like my mom getting a delicious meal and her dumbass kid asked for some crackers with some cheese. Now, of course, it was all harmless at that time. I mean, I was 8 and it was just lunch. But this concept of being cool and wanting to be like what I saw on TV is something that would eventually lead to me absolutely hating myself. Because in 2006, the legendary We're All in This Together High School Musical came out. And I remember I had the biggest crush at that time on Vanessa Hudgens and Ashley Tisdale. I remember I was in the 6th and 7th grade and I was like looking at the TV and I was like, wow, that's what high school girls are like. That's what high school is like. Wow. They had the coolest high school life, like fun, basketball, pretty girls. I watched them thinking like, wow, that was everything I wanted to be. Confident, popular, aesthetic. But there was one important aspect that a young, impressionable 11-year-old brain never registered at that time, which was that no one at the perfect East High School was Asian. Now, going into high school, I had these really grand expectations. Like I watched a couple more movies, including, American Pie. And so I thought, cheerleaders, jocks, wild parties, sex, a wild place where I get thrown into lockers, but also have the craziest memories. I honestly thought I'd be a cool basketball jock, I'm not gonna lie. I remember going into my first day of high school thinking like I might get jumped or initiated or something, and that scared me, but it also excited me so much. But boy, oh boy, was I wrong, because I ended up at an almost all Asian high school, and I won't be the first to tell you that it was nothing like the movies. First off, I didn't really realize at the time, but none of the cast of High School Musical was actually in high school. In fact, no high school movie ever has the cast actually been high school students. But I didn't make that connection. So I was pretty damn surprised when we went into high school and no one was like the hotness that I expected from the movies. And look, before girls from my high school come attack me, this is just what like movies did to me, okay? And it's not that you're not pretty or cute, okay? It's because you were 12 and 13. And the movies were showing me 20-year-olds. and Asians, like now we're awesome. We have amazing genes, but let's be real, okay? We don't glow up till like 20. High school is not our time because in high school going in, each and every single one of us looks like we're 8 years old. Myself included. Jocks, cheerleaders, homecoming, wild parties, that did not exist. Let me show you a quick clip of what my high school looked like. And look, I know they say don't believe in stereotypes, but if you wanted to give a comedian all the fuel they need for Asian jokes, my school was the place to be. Because we were 100% your stereotypical Asians. Like seriously, I think every single kid in my grade, including myself, did summer school every single summer to get ahead. I took grade 11 classes in grade 9 to get ahead. And this was normal for everyone. And I was like, okay, this is not cool. But I remember hearing the older kids in the hallway and they were having conversations about like crazy parties they were having, like drinking, sex. Yeah, the movies made me think that if I graduated high school a virgin, I was a total loser. And so that really excited me. Except it didn't, because I was kidding, okay? Everyone in my school, all they talked about was grades, summer school, extra classes. And the infamous Asian six-pack, which by the way, isn't about being a sexy Asian who's getting all the girls, who's like, has a six-pack and everything. No, the Asian six-pack is all about the collection of courses you're doing. Calculus and vectors, advanced functions, chemistry, physics, and biology. The Asian six-pack. All in one semester. It was so far from the high school experience that I had dreamed of, that I saw in the movies, that was cool. And all I could see was that our high school wasn't cool. And that made me feel not cool. And looking around me, there's only one logical answer that my brain came to. was because we were Asian. And I hated it. Now, before anyone cancels me for what I'm about to say next, this was back in 2009. Like, we were still using Facebook at that time. There was no IG, or it was like just starting out. Like, the social environment was very, very different. And I was very influenced by media and stereotypes. And so I remember sitting in the cafeteria ranting to my friends. And I said, being Asian is the worst race you could possibly be. Like, seriously, I would rather be anything but Asian. And so that's when I began to hate being Chinese, to hate being Asian. I'd go see family in Hong Kong and intentionally speak English out loud, thinking it made me better than everyone. I tried my best to not speak Cantonese and just speak English with my parents. And I did my best to disassociate as much as I could from my culture and people. I did not want to be associated with Chinese in any way possible. Now, obviously at the time you're in high school, you're kind of just figuring things out. And I would just make all these crazy, dumb statements. But this identity problem, and me being so disconnected from my culture and heritage, it would eventually come back to haunt me. Now in 2012, another legendary American high school movie came out, Project X. I remember watching that movie and coming out and I was like, oh my God, I cannot graduate a virgin. And it's just crazy how impressionable I was at that time. Like, how did I not make the connection that this girl who looks way too old now was not actually a high schooler, that high school isn't actually like this. And so I came out of that movie inspired. And I would tell my friends, Mike and Edward, like, yo guys, we are not going into university as losers. We are not going into university as virgins. Enough is enough. If our high school is too ching chong bing bong, if it's not gonna be lit, we just gotta hang with the white kids.
Sheldon believes that every party you go to has to be like Project X, or it's not a real party.
We had some fun times, we had some fun experiences, but it never hit that level.
You were not satisfied until you had a Project X party where somebody stole a street sign, somebody jumped off the roof into a pool, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of motorboating, none of which we had.
Yeah. Now, when it was time for university, guess what I prioritized? It definitely wasn't school. I actually got into every school that I applied for, but the one I wanted to go to the most was a party school that was, most importantly, a lot less Asian, rather than the nerdy top engineering school that my mom wanted me to go to. Because I also got to that school, and it was like the best engineering school.
To learn engineering by applying concepts and building things.
But according to my research, was going to be super Asian and basically my high school part 2. I did not want to go there, but somehow my mom convinced me to just give it a shot. Okay, fine, mom, I guess I'll think about my future instead of, saying, like, oh, it's fine, I'll think about, that university is not for partying, but for my future. But I mean, university was supposed to be my fresh start. Like, sure, my nerd school was Asian, but like, it's university, it's much more diverse. And I thought, you know what, this is it. I'm gonna be partying, I'm gonna be in a frat. And I remember, because Mike was going to the same school and he was like, yo, you want a room together? And I'm like, nah. We got to meet new people and branch out. I was like, I don't want to hang out with my old friends. I don't want to hang out with them. And I remember the first day I legit told him, I was like, yo, like we'll catch up when we go back, home or something. But like, we shouldn't hang out as much here. Like now that there were more white kids around, I was like, yo, I'm going to hang out with the white kids. Like, I'm going to become white. Then we're going to go party. I'm going to like be cool, do what in my head, like white people do. And so I hung out with random white kids that first week. They were just talking about so many things that I cannot relate to. Things they build, and they just love small talk for the sake of small talk. I like Naruto and video games. And it was clear I didn't belong. Like, they didn't say it, but I felt it. Like, they'd hang out without me. They wouldn't tell me to chill. They wouldn't call me. It was always like me reaching out. Like, I was that desperate guy. And so I went back, begrudgingly, to be with the Asians, the community that I always got along well with, but that I never wanted to be a part of. It's kind of like when you're in high school and there's the cool kid table and you finally get a chance to sit there and you realize you don't belong there, then you have to go back to your table. I felt inferior as an Asian, yet I couldn't change the fact that I was Asian. I had spent my childhood rejecting my entire identity to try and get a new one, only to realize that one didn't fit me. So where do I go from here? Now, when 20 came around, I still hated being Chinese. Like, I hated Chinese school. I hated learning it growing up. I couldn't deny at that point, like, okay, like, I guess it'd be helpful to speak Mandarin, like, for the career or whatever. I guess the Asian in me should try to be productive. So let's try and like learn a stupid language. Like maybe it'll help me in the future, whatever. So now the interesting thing about learning a language is that you can't learn one without diving into the culture. You know, suddenly I'm not listening to The Sixth God, but listening to some Zhou Jielun. And look, I still couldn't speak Mandarin at this point because like the basic classes, apps and tutors like weren't that helpful for me. But I started to fall in love with the culture. I'd start watching celebrities try and speak Chinese, hearing Chinese international students speak about their experiences, getting closer with my family and relatives by speaking in Chinese. I had finally learned to embrace my Chinese side, my Asian side, who I was, and not reject it. And so I went back to that cafeteria table with the nerdy, overachieving Asians that I'd rejected for so many years. And I realized, you know, being able to speak and gossip in multiple languages, that's cool. Being able to enjoy music in another language, that's cool. This right here, us being Asian, hanging out, this is what's cool.